In this business, when we talk about changing the game, we mean a car has come out that basically realigns the benchmark for what consumers can expect. And right now, it's the 2016 Mercedes-Benz E-Class, a car that, aside from its sharp executive styling and range of efficient and modern engines, has so much technology on board that it could very well be the most advanced passenger car in the world. When we first saw pictures of the new E-Class, caused a bit of controversy. People saying, are you driving a big C-Class or a small S-Class? But no one said you were driving anything other than a Mercedes-Benz, and you know what? That's what the brand wants. And I have to say, looking at it in the mid-size configuration, it's a very sharp, smart and modern-looking executive sedan. Now this is the E300, a car that's going to replace the E250 as we know it in Australia and probably be the volume seller. It's got an updated 4-cylinder 2-litre turbo petrol engine with 180 kilowatts and 370 newton metres of torque. There's going to be diesels, other petrols including the E400 4MATIC all-wheel drive version and a couple of AMGs down the line, including a big boy E63. Now at the back you've got those lovely LED tail lamps and of course, being an E-Class, a big boot. The outgoing car had a 540 litre boot. This is as big if not bigger, but with one difference. You've got a 3-way split on the second row to make it extra convenient for big stuff like camera tripods. Now the new E-Class has an extra 65mm of wheelbase, which Mercedes say translates to a lot more interior room. But I'm 6'3" and a bit, and I have to say, I'm not actually that comfortable. My toes are quite tightly jammed under the driver's seat, which is in my position, which has forced my thighs to sit a little bit higher off the rear bench, and I don't know if this would be right for a long journey. That said, you've got air vents in the center console and in the B-pillar, a really nice digital climate control display, and of course, a center armrest with cup holders. But we're not here to talk about the back seat of the new E-Class. All of the amazing technology that will separate this car from, well, pretty much everything else on the road is up there. We'll hop into the new E-Class with a fancy new key, and you get a proper wow moment when you see the new dashboard. Twin screens, high resolution, it looks basically like two iPads stuck together. You've got your standard instrument display here, plus then the car's information systems, infotainment, and of course navigation. Now all of this can be configured with these touchpads on the steering wheel. What this allows you to do is easily change the information that's on these screens and keep your car up to date with what you're doing while on the move without taking your eyes off the road. But if you think this is cool, you wait till you see some of the driving tech. Let's hit the road. Now there's so many new features and technology that have been put into the new E-Class that to go through it all, honestly, we would be here all week. There's safety systems, driver assistance systems, and even some pretty cool tech around the cabin that make the E-Class just that little bit more special. So rather than go through everything, I'm just going to pick some of the cool stuff that helps you as a driver, but also some of the key safety initiatives from Mercedes, as well as, well, I guess some treats that are around the cabin. Well, let's start things off with a little bit of a light-hearted approach. The lighting in the interior can be selected from one of 64 different colours. There's neon strips that basically run underneath the dash elements and around the doors and basically light up the cabin at night. And in fact, on the car's brightest setting, it's pretty intense. It's a little bit like a nightclub. You can of course dull it down if you don't like the electric blue that we've gone with at the moment to make it a little bit more subtle. But it's certainly something a little bit clever and just the start of the personalisation options that come from the technology on the E-Class. On the main screen for the driver, you can choose from 3 different styles, sport, a traditional, and what they call progressive, which is what we're on now, which gives you a big center digital speedometer and tacho. You've got 2 screens either side. I'm currently running a trip and fuel economy meter, as well as a sub-navigation screen. Now this car also has a heads-up display, which I've found I'm not actually using because this screen is so good at giving me the information that I need, I don't need to take my eyes off, well, either it or the road. So the two thumb pads on the wheel are very intuitive to use, and you find it doesn't take that much attention away from the road in order to change the screens to get what you want to do. You can configure what you want on the left and the right to make it a little bit more of a personalised treatment that you can even save down to a USB to transport to another car. Now the main screen, which I've got running the navigation at the moment, can even be split, so you can have nav and perhaps your audio, but it also handles any of the main menu functions for configuring the car, for either your seats, the air conditioning, or any of the other myriad settings available at your fingertips. But enough about infotainment. How does the big Merc drive? Well, on these winding Portuguese back streets, I have to say it's quite impressive. We've got the car in comfort mode now, which perhaps is a little bit floaty when it comes to directional steering, but it's a very comfortable ride. Hitting a pothole in comfort though, you will feel it and hear it, because obviously the two-stage air suspension cylinders are at their most open at that point, so it will allow the wheel to move up and down very quickly. It's not crashy, it's not upsetting, but it's just a bit louder than it would be if the valves were tightened, which you can do by switching it into sport mode. Now sport is probably my favourite setting. It changes the weighting on the steering wheel and firms up the suspension just a little bit, and it gives you a little bit more, I guess, direct involvement with the car. Now that said, it's not quite as tight as a BMW, which really is the benchmark for driver engagement in this segment, but I have to say for most people, it's going to do most things very well. Now this is the E300, which replaces the 250 in our market and will probably be the top seller. The 2-litre 4-cylinder, you know what, it pulls okay, there's enough power here. You don't obviously feel like you're ready to race anybody, but it's adequate for running around town. As typical with the Mercedes, turn-in is light and it's a very, very easy car to drive. When you are at slow speeds, particularly in comfort, it can feel like a big-ish car, but it's never unmanageable, even on these tiny, tight Portuguese back streets. I just hope we don't meet a bus. And while we head over to the freeway to demonstrate some of the more advanced driver assistance stuff, we came through here at night yesterday evening, and the new adaptive LED headlamps are quite amazing. When the road opens up and it knows that you need some extra lighting, you see the LED beam basically open like a curtain to expand for a wider vision, to allow you to make sure that you've got adequate visibility on both sides of the road. And of course, as with other modern adaptive LED systems, it blocks out other cars both coming towards you and in front of you, and you have this really clever moving black block of light that shields other cars from the glare of your headlamps. Now, one thing that has been a little bit of a downer of the new E-Class is the fuel consumption. Now, these cars are properly run in. This one's done over 4,000 kilometres, and we're still seeing, well, certainly 50% more than it should do at these speeds, according to Mercedes-Benz. I'm sitting on around 11.9 litres per 100, and I reset it when I started the drive, and I really have been just putt-putting around. Now, whether or not that's a mixture of the new cars or the fuel or whatever, we really will obviously pay close attention to that when the cars arrive on local soil. But at the moment, it seems a little bit high, and I don't think we'll be hitting any of Mercedes' claim figures. Now, safety is obviously an area where Mercedes-Benz have always led the way, and the new E-Class is absolutely no exception. There are so many passive and active systems on this car that to list them all would probably take about an hour. Some of the standouts include a very clever system that, in the event of an accident, when the car knows that there will be a collision, it plays what we've nicknamed the brown noise, which is a bit of white noise static comes through the stereo speakers, which basically interrupts the pressure on your inner ear so you don't suffer hearing damage from the accident. Now, the cabin overall is very impressive. It's obviously an update of the new floating centre console that we saw in the C-Class. The material choice is excellent, and the customisation choice is very broad, allowing you to build a very personalised E-Class to suit your tastes. Even this car, without a leather stitched dashboard or any of the fancy stuff, is a very, very nice place to be. And the car overall is extremely quiet. The only wind noise we really see is from the glass sunroof, obviously because it's the thinnest point of the car. Now, as good as the cabin may be, there are still some things that personally don't really work for me. The bank of buttons here on the centre stack, as in the C-Class, I find I have to kind of relearn every time I'm in the car, particularly for the air conditioning controls. One cool thing that I like as we're coming through traffic here, you've got a passive ultrasonic array around the car for your parking sensors, is always noticing how close we are to curbs and the car in front, that we get an overlay on the navigation screen here just to let us know how close we're getting to either bollards on the side of the road or the little Fiat Panda ahead of us. going over the cobblestones back there. It's a little bit noisy through the run-flat tyres, but honestly, you're going to get that in any car, and it's still a very comfortable and easy to live with compliant ride. Move on to the freeway, however, and the new E-Class cruises like nothing else on the road. But now for some of the more impressive driver assist party tricks, we're going to drop onto the freeway and have a look at the new Drive Pilot, which is the extension to the already impressive Distronic Plus system. Now, to initiate Drive Pilot, it's the same as cruise control in any other Mercedes. You basically tap the stalk towards you, set your speed, or I've got 120 kilometres an hour on the system now, and the car will look after itself, obviously measuring distance to the vehicles in front to ensure you maintain a solid and safe gap. But there's a little bit of a difference. You may have seen a few years ago, we showed you an example of the steering assist on an E400 estate, which made minor corrections to the steering without driver input on the wheel. Well, this car system takes it a step further. So we're sitting here doing 120 kilometres an hour in the middle lane, and I'm going to take my hands off the wheel. And the car's got a setting down here. You can see it's got a little green steering wheel icon, and it's basically making all the adjustments in my lane for me. Now, it's looking at the cars ahead, we're maintaining a distance, but check out this. To change lanes, I simply put my finger on the indicator and the car moves across to make an overtaking move, and then we'll move back as I put the indicator on again, back into the previous lane. We're all without my input on the steering wheel. Now, obviously, this is not something that we or Mercedes condone. You shouldn't be just sitting here clapping your hands instead of driving, but it's there to make sure that the car is understanding and cognizant of its surroundings, and is obviously the first step towards full autonomy in Mercedes. Now, we're just receiving a warning on our heads-up display to say, put your hands back on the wheel. If I was to continue driving and not touch the wheel, the car would assume there's a problem with me as the driver and gradually slow down. At 60 kilometres an hour would trigger the hazard lights to let other vehicles know that there's an issue with this car, and it would basically come to a complete and safe halt. Another cool system that we sadly won't be getting in Australia is the ability to adjust the cruise control speed as the car sees a speed sign. So as we came through a toll booth before, where the speeds go from 120 to 80 to 60, the car's cruise control system through Distronic adjusts, and it basically slows down to take you through the toll booth at 60 kilometres an hour. As soon as you're through, accelerates back up to 120 without any input on the pedals at all. So here's the fun tip. We don't get that in Australia because our speed signs are not standard. Plus, if you have a look at the back of a truck, they have an actual red circle with 100 written on the back to signify the speed limitation. Now, if the Mercedes was to see that rather than the actual speed sign and speed up to 100 kilometres an hour in maybe a 60 zone, well, that's no good for anyone. Now, all of the new E-Class models that we're initially going to see in Australia will feature the new 9G Tronic automatic transmission. Now, this 9-speed is a very, very smooth and easy to live with gearbox, particularly in drive and in the comfort drive mode as we are now. You don't notice gear changes, and you find it's always selected a gear that's pretty right for your conditions. Obviously, if you need to sort of jump on the throttle and overtake someone, you've got a minor delay as the car figures out what you need to do, but it does have a learning mechanism, so we'll get used to your driving style, and particularly if you do change modes a lot, you'll be finding that the gearbox will adapt to what you want from it, and honestly, it's pretty impressive. Now, before you all jump on the YouTube comments and say you haven't found anything negative to say, trust me, I've been looking. There's not really that much to start picking around the car, given that we've only had a short amount of time with it. Now, as we say with a lot of Mercedes models, it may not be the best of everything. BMW will probably give you a slightly more dynamic experience, and Audi a better integrated technology one. Things like the command navigation, it's a beautiful screen and it's a beautiful implementation, but it's still not a perfect user-based experience. That said, that's trying to pick some holes in it, because honestly, it's pretty good. And for the majority of buyers who are looking for a smart, good-looking, well-appointed executive saloon in this segment, the new E-Class is absolutely not going to disappoint. Well, as a package, the all-new 2016 E-Class is undeniably impressive. It looks smart. This tech is, in a word, it's mind-blowing, the capability that this car has, particularly in this segment. Now, okay, the back seat could probably be a little bit more comfortable and the ride a little less firm, plus it seems pretty thirsty to us, but let's wait until we can get one on local shores to see how that goes on our roads in our spec. But right now, if you're thinking about one of these, it'll be worth the wait.